Zohran Mamdani, the progressive New York State Assemblyman who built his reputation challenging powerful institutions and advocating sweeping reforms, just stepped onto one of the most consequential stages in American local politics. The New York City mayoral debate against former Governor Andrew Cuomo, a political heavyweight known for decades of influence and controversy. But during that debate, something happened that has everyone talking. Not just another policy disagreement, not just another campaign attack. Something deeper. Something that exposed a clash not only between two candidates, but between two completely different visions of political power in America's largest city. Because while Cuomo presented himself as the experienced leader ready to restore order and stability, Mamdani pushed a radically different narrative, one that directly challenged Cuomo's record and the political system that built his career. Critics say Mamdani went too far. Supporters say he finally said what many voters have been thinking for years. So what really happened on that stage? And why are political analysts suddenly saying this debate may have changed the trajectory of the entire mayoral race? Subscribe if you're tired of political hypocrisy. Because by the end of this video, we're going to connect every piece of this confrontation and reveal what it may actually mean for the future of New York City politics. To understand why this debate mattered so much, you need to understand the political moment New York City is currently facing. This isn't just another mayoral race. The city is dealing with a housing crisis, rising concerns about public safety, debates over policing, and growing frustration with the cost of living. For millions of residents, daily life has become more expensive and more uncertain. And that frustration has created a political vacuum, one that multiple candidates are now trying to fill. On one side is Andrew Cuomo, the former governor of New York. A political figure with decades of experience, Cuomo built his career as one of the most powerful Democrats in the country. He led the state through major policy battles, large infrastructure projects, and of course one of the most controversial periods in modern political history, the COVID-19 pandemic. But Cuomo's career also ended in scandal and resignation, leaving behind a deeply divided public perception. And some voters still see him as a strong executive who can manage complex crises. Others see him as a symbol of everything wrong with entrenched political power. On the other side is Zohran Mamdani, a much younger figure in the political landscape. As a state assemblyman from Queens, Mamdani has built his reputation around progressive policies and grassroots organizing. His campaign focuses on issues like housing affordability, transit access, and social programs aimed at reducing inequality. Supporters view him as part of a new generation of political leadership. Critics, however, argue that his proposals are unrealistic or too radical for a city as complex as New York. So when these two candidates faced each other on the debate stage, it wasn't just a conversation about policy. It was a confrontation between two political eras, one representing establishment power and experience, the other representing an insurgent movement demanding structural change. And what unfolded over the next 90 minutes would quickly become one of the most talked about political moments of the campaign. Earlier that evening, inside the debate studio in New York, the atmosphere already felt tense. The moderators introduced the candidates, the cameras went live, and millions of viewers began watching across television and online streams. Each candidate was given only 45 seconds for their opening statement. That may not sound like much time. But in modern political debates, those first few seconds are everything. Andrew Cuomo used his opening to establish a clear message: experience, stability, leadership. He reminded viewers of his years in public office and his role managing large government systems. According to Cuomo, the city didn't need experimentation or ideological battles. It needed someone who had already proven they could run government. Zohran Mamdani took a very different approach. Rather than focusing on his resume, he framed the moment as a choice about the city's future. He spoke about the cost of living, struggling renters, and the feeling many residents have that the political system isn't working for them anymore. And while he didn't mention Cuomo by name immediately, the implication was clear. The problems New Yorkers are facing today were created by the very system Cuomo represents. But the real confrontation didn't begin until the debate moved into policy questions. Less than 10 minutes later, the moderators introduced the first major topic: housing. And in New York City, housing is arguably the most explosive issue in politics right now. Rents have surged, affordable housing supply remains limited, and many families feel increasingly pushed out of neighborhoods they've lived in for decades. Cuomo responded first. He proposed large-scale housing construction, arguing that the only realistic way to lower costs is to dramatically increase supply. According to Cuomo, the city needs hundreds of thousands of new housing units and faster development approvals. He framed this as a practical solution backed by his experience managing state-level projects. Then, Mamdani responded. And this is where the tone of the debate shifted. Rather than simply disagreeing on policy, Mamdani reframed the issue entirely. He argued that housing isn't just a supply problem, it's a power problem. According to his argument, large developers and political insiders have shaped the housing market in ways that benefit wealthy investors rather than working families. And that's when Mamdani pointed directly at Cuomo's record. During Cuomo's time as governor, housing policy often favored large development projects and partnerships with major real estate interests. Mamdani suggested that this approach helped fuel the affordability crisis the city is experiencing today. The moment immediately intensified the debate. Cuomo pushed back, defending his record and pointing to programs he said expanded housing access across the state. He accused Mamdani of promoting unrealistic solutions and ignoring the economic realities of large-scale development. But the exchange had already accomplished something important politically. It transformed what could have been a technical discussion about housing policy into a direct confrontation about responsibility. And before we continue, if you're tired of political hypocrisy and want more analysis like this, subscribe. Because what happens next makes this story even more intense. As the debate moved forward, the discussion expanded to other issues: public safety, transportation, and the future of Rikers Island, New York's notorious jail complex. Each topic revealed deeper divisions between the candidates. Cuomo emphasized management and institutional control. His argument was that complex systems require strong leadership and administrative competence. Mamdani, on the other hand, repeatedly returned to the idea that the existing system itself is failing large portions of the population. For him, the solution wasn't simply better management, it was structural reform. But then came the moment that many analysts later described as the turning point of the entire debate. The moderators asked about the legacy of political leadership in New York. And Mamdani took the opportunity to bring up one of the most controversial chapters of Cuomo's career: the handling of nursing homes during the early months of the COVID-19 pandemic. The topic has remained politically explosive for years. Critics argue that state policies at the time contributed to tragic outcomes in long-term care facilities. Cuomo and his allies have repeatedly defended the decisions as the best available under unprecedented circumstances. Or when Mamdani referenced the issue, the reaction in the studio was immediate. Cuomo strongly rejected the criticism, accusing Mamdani of politicizing a public health crisis. He defended the state's response and pointed to federal guidance that influenced the policies at the time. But the exchange had once again shifted the debate away from abstract policy discussions and towards something far more personal: trust. And that question, trust, may ultimately define the entire race. Because voters now face a choice between two competing narratives. One narrative says experience matters most. Running a city like New York requires someone who has already navigated massive institutions, budgets, and crises. From that perspective, Cuomo represents proven leadership, even if it comes with controversy. The other narrative says the existing system is precisely the problem. That decades of political leadership created many of the issues the city now faces. From that perspective, Mamdani represents the possibility of something fundamentally different. On social media, the debate immediately exploded into conversation. Clips from the confrontations circulated widely across political platforms. Supporters of both candidates shared their favorite moments. Critics dissected every exchange. And within hours, hashtags like #NYCMayorDebate, #Cuomo vs. Mamdani, and #NYCPolitics began trending across multiple platforms. Political commentators offered sharply different interpretations. Some analysts argued that Cuomo demonstrated the command and authority expected from a seasoned executive. Others said Mamdani successfully reframed the race as a generational and ideological shift. But then something else happened. Several political insiders began pointing out a deeper strategic implication of the debate. If Mamdani's goal was simply to present policy ideas, the debate would have looked very different. But his strategy appeared to focus on something more ambitious: redefining Cuomo's political identity in the minds of voters. Instead of allowing Cuomo to run as the experienced problem solver, Mamdani repeatedly connected him to past controversies and systemic failures. And this is where the political stakes become even clearer. Because if Mamdani succeeds in framing Cuomo not as a stabilizing figure but as a symbol of the old political system, the entire dynamic of the race could change. Suddenly, the election isn't about choosing the most experienced leader. It becomes a referendum on the political establishment itself. And according to what is known so far, that may have been exactly the strategy behind Mamdani's debate performance. Documents, campaign messaging, and recent interviews suggest that his team has been working to shift the narrative away from traditional campaign themes and toward a broader question: who actually represents the future of New York City politics? If that framing takes hold with voters, it could dramatically reshape the race, because debates rarely change elections on their own. But they can redefine the story voters tell themselves about the candidates. And here's what many people still don't realize. For Cuomo, the path to victory likely depends on convincing voters that experience and stability are the city's most urgent needs. For Mamdani, the path likely depends on convincing voters that experience is exactly what created the current problems. Two completely opposite arguments, both competing for the same city. So now the question moves to you, and to every voter watching this race unfold. Did the debate prove that experience is the safest choice for New York's future? Or did it reveal that the city is ready for an entirely new political direction? Because the answer to that question may determine not just the outcome of this election, but the direction of one of the most influential cities in the world. And if this video helped you understand what many headlines leave out, share it so more people can see the bigger picture. Stay tuned, because in the next video, we're going to break down the political forces shaping the next phase of the New York mayoral race, and why the stakes may be even higher than they appear.